Hey guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. Just a couple things before we get into today's video. I do just want to say that my intro, I obviously didn't make. I have zero artistic talent whatsoever. It is made by Cool Skull, and I was going to tag him in the last few videos, but he didn't have an Instagram at that time. However, his Instagram is back up and running, so I'm going to link it in the description of this video as well as my future videos as long as he has an Instagram. But I do highly recommend that you guys go and check out his work because he is absolutely amazing. Another thing that I just want to say before we get into today's video is the topic that we are discussing is a very heavy one. Obviously, when we talk about true crime cases, they're usually pretty heavy, but this one in particular just left me feeling dirty and gross and very uncomfortable, frankly. We do talk lightly about rape, but I'm not diving into it and we aren't going into detail. But if that is something that you are not interested in hearing about, please kick out of this video and go watch another video on my channel maybe, or I'll just see you next week or another time. But with that all being said, let's get right into today's case. We're going to be talking about the case of Colleen Ritzer. Colleen Ritzer was born on May 13th, 1989, making her 24 years old in 2013. She was from Lawrence, Massachusetts, and was working as a math teacher at the Danvers High School in Danvers, Massachusetts. This teaching job that Colleen had as a math teacher was her absolute passion. She was said to have a very open and friendly nature to her. She was several of the students' favorite teacher. Everybody loved her. She was really, really passionate about her job, even staying late hours into the night, or after school, I guess, was over some nights, to help her students because she always wanted to be there for them. She wanted them to feel comfortable, and she wanted to do whatever she could to help them succeed. And she was just a really passionate and great teacher. So much to the point that her parents were actually saying that this was Colleen's dream since she was in preschool. She had always known that she wanted to be a teacher. Now, obviously growing up, everybody has their dream jobs, but usually you don't follow through and become that. I mean, I wanted to be a zookeeper and I am definitely not doing that. But the fact that she knew that she wanted to be a teacher and followed through and did that is just absolutely amazing and shows how passionate she would have been about this job that she had. A key component to Colleen's personality is that she was extremely family oriented. Even though she was working full-time at the school, she still lived with her parents because, you know what, she was pretty young and she just wasn't ready to move out yet. She really enjoyed living at home with her family. She had two siblings, a sister and a brother, and she was very, very close to them as well as her parents. And she would finish work around 3:30, and her mom worked from home, and every single day at 3:30, Colleen would go home, and for the rest of the night, she would hang out with her parents and her sister. Her brother was away at college, so they didn't hang out as often, but they were still very, very close. And when Colleen would come home from school, every single day she would sit down with her mom and they would talk about her day, and she would tell her mom, you know, how much she loved her job and how her day went. And her entire family, again, was just really, really tight-knit. They were all very, very close, and that was just the way that it was. They were a really happy, loving, close family. Again, it was 2013 and Colleen had been working at this school for 2 years and she was really happy with this job, and up until this point she hadn't had any excessively negative experiences working at the high school. In October of 2013, Colleen had gotten a new student in her class by the name of Philip Chisholm. He was in the 9th grade, so I believe that that would make him 14 years old. And he had moved to Danvers from Tennessee after his parents had gone through a very messy divorce, and he had moved there with his mother 2 months prior, so in August. Danvers is a very small town, and the high school was extremely small as well, and it was the only high school in that area, so everybody who went to that high school pretty much knew each other. However, Philip was new, so obviously he didn't really know too many people, and Philip was very, very quiet. He pretty much always kept to himself. He didn't talk much. He was pretty smart. He just got his schoolwork done and he would go home, and that was pretty much it. He did, however, join the school soccer team, and he had played soccer at his previous high school, and he was a very good soccer player because he took the sport extremely seriously. Now that we have a little bit of context, let's jump forward to October 22nd, 2013. For Colleen, this day started similar to any other day. She started work, she would be teaching all day till about 2:30, and and then she would stay for about a half an hour after class to help some of her students with some extra work or some kids that needed some extra help. Initially, when I started reading about this specific period that this school does, it really confused me, but after I kind of started to understand what they were talking about, I do think that more schools should implement this. So at Danvers High School from 2:30 to 3 o'clock, this was a 30-minute period where you were in school, but it was kind of like a free period where you could go to any class or the library and you could get help in subjects that you needed help with, or if you had like a project or something like that, you could do extra work on that project in this like free period that you got from 2:30 to 3 o'clock. So that was what was going on when Colleen had stayed after school to help the students. She was, I guess, still on the clock, but it was considered to be after school hours because there were no like ongoing structured classes at this time. Colleen had asked Philip to stay after class, or he had just done so by his own free will, isn't really known. That's kind of up for debate, but after the bell went off at 2:30, the rest of Colleen's class had got up and left, besides Philip and another young girl who just wanted to stay behind to kind of hang out and spend extra time with Colleen, because Colleen was a very sweet and loving teacher, and she did end up being this little girl's favorite teacher, and that is why the girl wanted to stay behind. So shortly after the bell rang, another teacher had come and knocked on the door and asked to speak to Colleen in the hallway. Nothing that they were talking about really pertained to the case whatsoever. These are just the series of events that are known to have led up to what happened. After Colleen and this teacher were done speaking, Colleen then returned to the classroom where her, Philip, and the female student were all just kind of hanging out. There wasn't really anything going on, so Colleen was just kind of making small talk with both of the students, and she started to ask Philip kind of like normal questions about Tennessee. She wasn't asking anything too in detail, but she was just like, like how'd you like living there? Like very generic questions. And the female student in the room said that you could immediately notice that Philip was getting visibly angry by the questions that Colleen was asked. Obviously, upsetting Philip was not Colleen's intention. She had no intention of doing that, and she could also notice that he was getting visibly upset with the questions that she was asking. So she quickly changed the subject and started talking about something completely different with the female student. However, even after the conversation was over, Philip remained very angry, and the female student said that he continued to like aggressively mumble under his breath. Shortly after this little weird incident had happened, the female student had to leave the classroom for whatever reason, so she said bye to Colleen and she packed up her things and headed out. After the female student had left the classroom, Colleen then also excused herself from the classroom to head to the washroom. Now, this was caught on surveillance cameras that are located within the school, and in this footage you can see Colleen going to the washroom, and then shortly after Colleen goes to the washroom, just minutes later, you can see that Philip has also gotten up. He is walking towards the woman's washroom and he has his hood pulled over his face. Insert the camera footage here in this video. I did just want to say that when I originally came across the camera footage for this case, I wasn't exactly aware of what was going on, and now knowing that it pertains to a murder, I just think that the camera footage itself is extremely unsettling. But anyways, there is more camera footage where you can see another female student walking into the woman's restroom. However, when this girl was interviewed, she said that when she walked into the washroom, she thought that somebody was changing or something like that was going on, and she felt really awkward and uncomfortable, so she just immediately turned around and left the restroom. She obviously didn't know what was going on in there. And then you can see Philip exit the women's washroom, and you can visibly see that Philip's hands have blood on them. He leaves the washroom in a hurry, and then it shows him coming back wearing a mask and gloves and dragging a recycling bin behind him. stood out to me most about this scenario and the camera footage is that Philip had gloves and a mask in his bag. So was this premeditated? Maybe Colleen wasn't his intended target, but had he planned on carrying something like this out anyway? Or had the Tennessee conversation just set him off completely and that's when he had targeted her? But obviously something was premeditated because nobody carries around rubber gloves and a mask and like cleaning products in their backpack, especially when you're in high school. Like, I mean, even as an adult, that would be weird, but... So Philip re-enters the woman's washroom and puts Colleen's remains in a recycling bin and kind of tidies the scene. And then on the security cameras outside of the school, you can see Philip rolling the bins containing her remains to the wooded area that was located near the school. What is so bone-chilling is that the police said that during this time, while Philip was wheeling Colleen to the forest in this bin, it had appeared that she was still alive. This part in particular just made my skin crawl and made me feel sick. But after getting her to the wooded area, he then removed her body from the recycling bins and he assaulted her using a stick that he found on the ground in the woods. He then laid out her body in a sexually degrading manner and left a note behind saying, "I hate you all." Philip then left the scene in jeans that were soaked in blood. He took Colleen's wallet and went and bought food on her credit card. He also bought himself a movie ticket for a movie theater that was local to the area. This case is so messed up. The fact that this crime was so heinous and it was all carried out by a 14-year-old just shows you that evil really doesn't have an age limit. Like, this case is sick. Later on that evening, when Philip hadn't returned home from school, that is when his mom started to completely panic. She started asking around, seeing if anybody had seen him, but obviously nobody had. And that is when real panic set in, and that is when his mother decided to phone the police. At the same time that Philip's mother was worrying about her son, Colleen's family was sitting at home frantic, worrying about her as well. She never showed up this late from work. She was not home, obviously. And the fact that she was this late and she hadn't called and nobody could get into contact with her really freaked the family out because this was very, very unlike Colleen. She was always in constant contact with her parents and this was just really out of character. Before taking the next step in calling the police, her parents did go to the school where Colleen worked and her car was still there. They checked the classroom that she worked in and all of her stuff was still in the classroom, but obviously Colleen was nowhere to be found. So at this point, they made a police report as well. Quickly linked the two missing persons cases because obviously the last class that Philip was in was Colleen's class, so it did seem likely that the cases were connected. Police didn't know exactly what they thought happened, but they did think that something happened involving the two. They went to the school and started searching around, and initially they didn't find anything too alarming until they went into the woman's restroom. That is when they could smell the strong scent of cleaning chemicals, and there was also a bloody handprint on the wall. At this point, police decided to pull the school's camera footage, and that is when they saw the footage of what we already know had happened. Police were able to track Philip's phone at this time, and they tracked it to the local movie theater. Police found Philip walking along the highway around midnight that night, and initially when they started to question him, he wouldn't give them any answers. However, when they took his backpack to search it, that is when he kind of started speaking a little bit more. Inside his backpack, they found a bloody box cutter, Colleen's underwear, and her credit cards. When they asked Philip who the blood belonged to, he said, and I quote, "that girl." At this point, they arrested Philip and they brought him in for questioning, and he pretty much spilled about everything. He had raped Colleen in the washroom, and that is what that other female student had walked in on. And then from there, we know the series of events, and it is just absolutely disgusting, so I don't want to dive too deeply into it again because it is just terrible. Philip was then charged with rape, robbery, and murder. I don't know if it's because I haven't dove into any really graphic cases lately, but this one really got to me. I couldn't think about it when I was going to sleep at night because it made me feel sick. It makes me feel dirty. The fact that a 14-year-old could do something like this for absolutely no reason boggles my mind. I don't even know what kind of evil must be within somebody who can commit such a heinous crime on somebody who did absolutely nothing wrong. It is absolutely disgusting. I can't even wrap my brain around it. It sincerely goes out to the family and the loved ones and the students and anybody who is close to Colleen Ritzer. This case is absolutely devastating and heartbreaking, and I can't even imagine what her family had to go through to cope with what had happened to Colleen. It is just absolutely devastating, and my heart and my prayers sincerely go out to them. But guys, that is going to be the end of today's video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.